What's up, everybody? Welcome to the CotAcasT. My name is Bermudez, and I'm the host of the Craft of the Air podcast, the aviation podcast that expands your knowledge in each episode. Join us as we explore the untold world of aviation together. It's gonna be a nice episode, man. If you have never wondered about that plane, that shiny plane waiting for you to take you on your next destination, as passengers, we may often take for granted the smooth and efficient experience of flying on a commercial airliner. But have you ever wondered about the life of this aircraft that you're sitting on, that's flying so high and so fast, from its creation to its retirement? And the journey of a commercial airline is full of fantastic, fascinating facts and different interesting data that we'll take a look at. But it's interesting. Older aircraft, newer aircraft, does it even affect us as travelers? Ticket prices, a newer aircraft, older aircraft, doesn't matter. How long are these things in service? How many people will ride on a single plane in its lifespan? We tackle it all. It's the jet life, my friend. The jet life on the CotAcasT. We take a look at it. First things first, today's episode of the CotAcasT is brought to you by Craft of the Air. With aviation maintenance training and consulting, COTA's a second you when you need it. Your personal aviation assistant for everything in the field of aviation maintenance. Consulting by COTA has special resources that will excel any aviation project or task. Now, they take a personalized approach in each client's needs by offering advice, reports, and data regarding innovative solutions and content to help you make confident decisions. Now, we're the trusted FAA licensed professionals and aviation knowledge experts with industry experience that speaks for itself. Get it from COTA. Are you an A&P student? Job placement advancement exams coming up. Test and refresh your airman's knowledge with CRAM. CRAM by COTA offers aviation maintenance learning sessions, the even simulated FAA written and oral exams that will help you pass any aviation maintenance exam, tailored for you by a certified A&P and subject matter expert. Anything aviation. Visit www.craftoftheair.com. Again, that's www.craftoftheair.com today and learn everything COTA can do for you. So now, it's a really interesting process, actually. An aircraft is something that, a lot of people, you're sitting in the boarding area, you're ready to go on your vacation, you're looking out the window, it's a beautiful day, and you see this beautiful, shiny aircraft waiting for you. This thing is something that's capable of flying at 540 miles per hour for 3,000 nautical miles straight at 41,000 feet above the ground. It's an engineering feat, and it's something that can stay in service for 25 years. Millions of passengers. It has flown millions of people, affected millions of lives. And the aircraft, it has a life. For people that maintain them, it's something you're very passionate about, as you can hear. It starts with the development of the aircraft, the process of creating an airliner. It's a complex one, and it involves teams of engineers, designers, and manufacturers. Now I take a look at Boeing. Love working on Boeing aircraft. Love speaking about Boeing. According to Boeing, designing and manufacturing a new commercial aircraft, get this, it takes approximately 3 years. Sarah Lee, an engineer with a major aircraft manufacturer, was quoted as saying, "Creating an airliner is a long and complex process that requires careful planning and execution," end quote. Now, developing a new aircraft, complex, yes, but expensive? Oh yes, very much so. A process that can cost billions of dollars. Boeing, they invest a significant portion of resources into developing newer aircraft. Known for developing some of the most popular commercial aircraft in the world, including the 47, the 777, the 787 Dreamliner. Now, developing a new aircraft, it's costly. According to Forbes, Boeing spent about $32 billion, $32 billion, developing the 787 Dreamliner, which was actually delayed for several years, and this was due to technical issues and other challenges. So it goes to say, it goes to show, even with this, there's still risks involved. Now, speaking of those risks, those challenges, it's a complex process, various challenges, speaking from technical issues, regulatory requirements. And in addition to the cost of development, significant risks are involved bringing a new plane into the market, an aircraft that the market has not seen thus far. It's interesting, and Vice President of Analysis at TO Group, Richard Abulafi, was quoted as saying the cost of developing a new aircraft can vary depending on a range of factors, including the size and complexity of the plane and the materials used and the technology required. It's interesting. Abulafi went on to say developing a new aircraft is a high risk and a high reward endeavor, end quote. So it's interesting. He went on to say, quote, the cost of development can be significant, and there's always a risk that the plane may not meet the customer needs or the regulatory requirements, end quote. That's a big, to be investing this type of money, and there's so much risk towards the end of these projects. In addition to changes in market demand, economic conditions, it can also, really, economically, this can all affect a new aircraft program. Scott Hamilton, the managing director of aviation consulting firm Lehman Co., was quoted as saying, developing a new aircraft is a long-term investment, and airlines and customers may change their preferences and needs over time. Boeing and other manufacturers need to carefully consider market trends and economic conditions when making these investments, end quote. Now, speaking of profitability of new aircraft programs, according to a report by Renters, Boeing typically needs to sell just to break even. This is just to break even. Boeing, they need to sell about 400 to 500 aircraft in a new aircraft program. Yes. This means that company needs to sell enough planes to cover the development costs and the manufacturing and overhead costs associated with producing an aircraft. Now, Boeing is a publicly traded company, and Boeing discloses its financial results regularly. According to the 2020 annual report, 2020, I'm saying it like that, 2020, I'm from New York. 2020 annual report, Boeing reported revenues of $58.2 billion for the year, with a net loss of $11.9 billion. Now, the reason why I bring up the 2020 annual report, it's reflecting, these results reflected the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as the grounding of the 737 MAX aircraft, and Boeing still reported $58.2 billion. Now, once it's been developed, the aircraft's been developed, it's manufactured, it's entered into commercial operations. Once it's entered into commercial operation, a lot of people don't realize it's flying thousands of miles each day. According to Boeing, a 737, one of the most commonly used aircraft in the entire world, it typically has a range of 12 to 3,700 nautical miles, depending on the model. This is greatly been increased, I can say that. But this means that an aircraft is capable of flying relatively short to medium haul routes and domestic flights or flights to neighboring countries. And airlines can choose to use the plane on longer routes as well. Richard Abulafi, the vice president of analysis of TO Group, he said, quote, in general, the 737 is well suited flying short to medium haul routes, which are typically less than 6 hours in duration. However, some airlines have used the 737 on longer routes, such as transatlantic flights, if they have sufficient numbers of seats and the right configuration, end quote. Now, speaking of seats, the number of passengers on a Boeing 737, it varies. It does vary. Specific model and configurations, they're chosen by the airlines. Those class configurations, first class, business class, how many seats do we have in economy? According to Boeing, 737 MAX 8, one of the most popular models of the 37, it can carry up to 210 passengers in a single class configuration, or about 178 passengers in a two-class configuration. I think we're seeing more of those nowadays. This means the aircraft can accommodate various airline needs, and this is low-cost airlines as well. So full-service airlines. Scott Hamilton, managing director of aviation consulting firm Lehman Co., was quoted as saying, quote, "The Boeing has designed the 737 to be a versatile aircraft that can meet the needs of range of airlines and the market. Depending on the configuration, 737 can be used for short-haul flights with a high frequency of passengers or longer routes with fewer passengers," end quote. Now, the service life. Speaking of the service life of an aircraft, a Boeing 737 will vary. There's a range of factors: the age of the aircraft, the maintenance that it received, how frequently it was flown. According to data, the 737 is designed to have about a service life of about 90,000 flight cycles. One flight cycle is the aircraft pressurizing, taking off, and then landing and depressurizing. So its service life about 90,000 of those. That's about 60,000 flight hours. 60,000. This translates into roughly 20 to 25 years of service for most airlines. Abulafi went on to say, quote, "In general, airlines can expect to operate a 737 for about 20 to 25 years, depending on how frequently it's flown and how well it's maintained. However, some airlines have been able to extend the service life of the aircraft by investing into upgrades and retrofitting." Now, interesting. So if you have 90,000 flight cycles, and we take kind of a 37 with an average, 170 passengers, 90,000 flight cycles, that one aircraft would have probably been responsible for 15.3 million, about 15.3 million passengers in its lifetime. Now, it's only as good as its maintenance. Keeping an airliner in top condition, it requires regular maintenance and inspections. According to the FAA, commercial aircraft are subject to rigorous maintenance standards to ensure their safety and reliability. Now, it's interesting, Mike Johnson, an aircraft mechanic, was quoted as saying, "Maintenance is a critical aspect of ensuring that an airliner remains in good condition. We've used advanced technologies and techniques to inspect and repair components, and we take great pride in ensuring that every plane is safe to fly." Now, there's a frequency. A lot of people say, well, how often is an aircraft, maintained? Is it every night? Is it like a car? Does the check engine light go on? The frequency and the cost of aircraft maintenance, it varies. There's various factors. It includes the age of the aircraft, the usage patterns, the maintenance program being followed. Now, generally, commercial airliners, they'll follow a maintenance program to ensure that the aircraft is safe and reliable. Involves scheduled maintenance, may have one every week, or unscheduled tasks such as inspections, component replacements, repairs. Now, according to industry estimates, this is interesting. Airlines will probably spend on average about $1 to $5 million per year on each aircraft just on maintenance. $1 to $5 million. a year. This depends on the size and the type of the aircraft, but and the maintenance history. But this can add up over the course of the aircraft's entire service career, which can last several decades. The total maintenance cost can add up to millions. But it's now, this maintenance is necessary. It is necessary. We got to ensure that the aircraft safety, the reliability, and you have to comply with regulatory requirements for the aircraft maintenance until its retirement. And you know, and when the aircraft gets to retirement, it's one of the it's very sad. It's very sad for the people that love aviation who see aircraft being retired. You know, after decades of flying thousands of miles, an airliner, it's eventually it reaches its end, its lifespan, and it has to be retired. Now, speaking of retirement, it's about, approximately 25 years for a commercial airliner. It's typically retired. It could be scrapped. It could be sold. It could be used for spare parts, converted for different purposes. A lot of people don't realize how many things happen after this commercial airliner that's been transporting people for so many years. It's not doing that anymore. Commonly, scrapping, one of the more common fates for retired commercial aircraft is to be dismantled and scrapped for their metals and their parts. According to the Aircraft Fleet Recycling Association, AFRA, around 85% of an aircraft can be recycled, including materials such as aluminum, steel, and titanium. Now, the remaining 15% is actually considered hazardous waste, and it has to actually be treated accordingly. Chris Solon, the founder of aviation website Airways Magazine, is quoted as saying, "In general, scrapping an aircraft is the most common way to dispose of it once it's reached the end of its service life. The metals and the parts can be sold for a profit, and it's also an environmentally responsible way to dispose the aircraft," end quote. Now, some examples of aircraft that have been scrapped include the iconic, the Queen of the Sky, the Boeing 747, which would gradually phased out by many airline fleets in the recent years. In 2021, Delta Airlines retired its final 747, and it was actually scrapped in Victoriaville, California. That's sad. Now, similar in 2019, British Airways retired its final Queen of the Sky, and she was also dismantled and scrapped. Now, spare parts is another, what happens to the parts, another fate. A fate for the retired commercial aircraft is to be sold for spare parts. And this can be actually a lucrative business. Lucrative business. I'm not saying anything. As airlines and aircraft, maintenance companies, they always need to replace parts for their existing fleets. And these spare parts that are coming off, off these aircraft that are being retired, a lot of them can still be used individually, of course. According to an International Air Transportation Association, IATA, the global aircraft parts market is estimated at $48 billion. $48 billion. One historical example of an aircraft being sold for spare parts is the Concorde, the supersonic jet, retired by Air France and British Airways in 2003. Now, interestingly enough, some museums, collectors, they express interest in requiring these planes, and they're, some of them are sold. There's a Concorde, in New York. There's a couple of examples of conversions. The aircraft has retired. It's been doing this one purpose of transporting passengers for its entire career, and some retired commercial aircraft are actually converted for different purposes. You convert it such as for cargo, for firefighting. Actually many Boeing 747s have been converted into cargo planes. And they have a large capacity. They could transport goods very, very long distances. Similar, some retired passenger planes, they've been converted into firefighting aircraft. And they could drop water on fire, forest fires. It's very interesting to see what can actually come from once the aircraft has reached the end of its service life. Can be scrapped for metal parts, sold for spare parts, converted in for different purposes. The scrapping is the most common fate for retired aircraft. Selling spare parts and conversion is also a lucrative option as well. Notable examples of retired aircraft include the 47 and the Concorde, one of my just favorites, and a lot of them are on display around the world now. A lot of people ask, if it's a newer plane or older plane, what does it matter to me? What does it matter? Does it cost us as a paying passenger or an employee anything? I mean, I tell you, it's as clear as day. If you're an aircraft maintenance engineer or you're a pilot, a newer aircraft is always better. It's going to be easier to work on. It's going to give you more information when there's a fault or an issue. And typically more reliable. Not always so. But now, a newer commercial aircraft, a retired one, it's gone through its 25 years, and it's been retired and scrapped. A newer commercial aircraft can actually positively and negatively affect passenger ticket prices. The newer aircrafts, they lead to increased efficiency and lower operating costs for airlines, but they come with a higher price tag for purchasing and leasing. There may be an episode coming up on that, so you may want to stay tuned. But now the positive effects, newer commercial aircraft, they come with advanced technologies, as I said. The design features, they increase fuel efficiency, they decrease operating costs. According to a report by Boeing, its 737 MAX aircraft, it offers 20% lower fuel consumption than previous models. And this results in significant cost savings for the airlines. Ben Smith, CEO of Air France KLM Group, is quoted as saying newer airplanes can have a positive effect on ticket prices because they offer increased efficiency and lower operating costs for airlines. These cost savings can be passed to the customers through lower fares or more competitive pricing, end quote. Now, there may be a kind of adverse effects on ticket prices towards the public. The potential cost savings, the initial investment in a newer aircraft, it can be significant. Airlines, they have to finance or lease these planes, and this can increase their debt and impact their profitability. Brian Pierce, a chief economist at International Air Transportation Association, was quoted as saying newer planes can be expensive to purchase or lease, and these costs can ultimately impact ticket prices for passengers. Airlines have to balance the cost of these investments with their ability to generate revenue and remain profitable, end quote. Now, in addition to the newer planes, they can also lead to a decrease in the supply of the older planes, which may result in higher ticket prices for the routes that typically are served by these planes. Seth Kaplan, editor at Airline Weekly, he was quoted as saying the replacement of older planes with newer models, they can lead to a decrease in availability of seats on certain routes. He went on to say this can lead to higher prices for routes as airlines look to optimize their profitability and to use newer, more efficient planes on higher demand routes, end quote. It's interesting, now to kind of to conclude this, in conclusion, the life of a commercial airliner, it's a complex journey. It's full of challenges, risks, rewards, from the process of creating an airliner to the retirement And just the passengers and the workers that it impacts. Developing a new aircraft is just high risk, high reward endeavor. We know it requires significant investments. But it's essential to meet the demands of the aviation industry. You know, the life of a commercial airliner. It affects each of us, whether we realize it or not. And it would always have some type of everlasting impact, wherever a plane has taken you, to a family member, to a friend, to an event, something you'll never forget. All right, I gotta wrap it up on that. Now we're getting that wraps it up for this week's episode of the CotAcasT. If you have not done so already, check out the Craft of the Air website, www.craftoftheair.com. Again, that's www.craftoftheair.com, and get your free initial consultation today. Craft of the Air, our craft is of the air. Comments or suggestions about this or future episodes, let's get in touch. Go to www.craftoftheair.com, go contact, and put in the subject CotAcasT. Guys, thanks for listening to today's episode of the CotAcasT. Be sure to follow and subscribe to the Craft of the Air Instagram, the Twitter, and our YouTube channel for the latest CotAcasT episode updates. You can rate and review the CotAcasT. We're streaming on Spotify. Check us out on Spotify, please. Apple, Prime, Pandora, Stitcher, and Google Podcasts. Every platform. Guys, again, thanks for listening. Have a great day. Be safe, and we'll be seeing you soon.